Not too long ago, I was an engineer, designing the pipelines that ship oil across the Texas Gulf, across other colonized lands. But the 9 to 5, the isolation, the culture of separation and stagnation I could not break was too much. So I quit, traveled and camped in forests, farmed in mountains for months on end. But Houston called me back. In the fall, I was told that my mother had died. And this winter, I parted with another dear soul. In the spring, I lost my mind for one long moment. Death happened, coping didn't. And after a while, I lost myself. Or rather, I found that I became something different, expanded. I felt the world around me quiver, heard the sounds of war. My reflexes jumped at the smallest sudden fearful thought. Lightning and thunder suddenly scared me when once I loved crushing showers. Those who were once my friends became distorted in the chaos and noise.
First my mother, now my sister. A frenzy came to them, realities I could not share. It was ugly and painful, and I was at a loss. For most of my life, I've not been well. My wellness has always been caught up in theirs. When they suffered, I suffered. How could it have been any other way? Do not tell me to take care. I have cared, and I'm not sure I can take any more. Do not tell me to be strong when we are all weak, laid bare in a dying, colonized land. We can never heal, never recover.
Fucking systematic oppression!
Yeah.
Come on. I'm not racist, I'm oppressed!
Yeah, genocide!
I was born here! I built these streets!
Yo,
I built these buildings!
yo,
They don't give a damn about us! Put that on the news!
they don't.
Put that on the news!
Just be here with me. Trace our wounds and scars, the oppressions, the injustice of poverty, displacement of losing our mother tongues, of worshiping foreign gods, of life in uncaring societies, stuttering for the words to speak at all. And still we stutter. We continue to tell our stories to make sense of the senseless. I first met Judith last October. I remember it was one of the first meetings I attended for work after my mom died. And it was then that I learned about her community on the Houston Ship Channel.
The community of Manchester is completely surrounded by industry. There's at least 7 different cancer-causing chemicals in the air of Manchester at all times. It gets even worse when it rains and at night when they're able to emit a lot more and get away with not being caught by air monitor. But some of these chemicals have been linked to different development issues in children. Some of them have also been linked to anxiety and depression. It's heartbreaking to see that a young 3-year-old girl already going through the battle for her life and still living in a community that's, I can say contributing to her bad health and her cancer. But we don't have any proof, right? That's the frustrating part of it, and what takes a toll on my anxiety or my mental health is realizing that these things are affecting us and that have been linked to our ailments, but there's no proof, and there's not one doctor that can come out and say that yes, these chemicals are contributing to these cancer rates and are contributing to these health impacts. Nobody's doing anything about it. Even though we don't call these things anxiety or depression, we know that something is going on with our spirit. And so ceremony or limpias or a curandera comes into play instead of a doctor or a psychologist or a psychiatrist or therapy. Our therapy is figuring out a way to release ourselves from that negative energy, those bad spirits that are haunting our minds. That's what makes our culture and our community strong, in the sense that we also acknowledge the spiritual aspect of our mental health and even the degradation of our environments. Because the way that we are treating our environments, our land, our water, and our air, it's basically the way that we're treating ourselves, and we're not taking care of ourselves. We're not being aware of how all of these things are linked to our health.
At that first meeting with Judith, I also met Doña Tere, a community leader from Guatemala. Judith has known Doña Tere for some time and was appointed an ambassador of Doña Tere's organization, COSIM, a group that celebrates Mayan culture and wisdom. I tried, in very broken Spanish, to translate for Doña Tere what was said at the meeting, but neither of us are native speakers, and some things get lost in translation. She gave me her phone number and told me to call, but I was still deep in my grief and barely able to function. I was embarrassed by my inability to communicate with her. I reconnected with Doña Tere several months later after my sister happened to meet her and wanted to learn more about indigenous perspectives on altered mental states, to seek healing, to find a way to make sense of her experience.
Experiencia mía en ese tema de salud mental, ambiente y contaminación, pues es evidente, es claro, es una experiencia más destructiva, negativa que vida. Porque aquí todo es muerto, todo es contaminado, el aire, el agua, tu propia casa, no tienes derecho de ver la luz, no tienes derecho de nutrirte, de vivir conexión con el sol. Todo es un caos para mí de salud mental y contaminación. Hay más reino de contaminación que buena salud mental. Más creo que no en la comunidad guatemalteca, ellos se sienten un poco felices de esa terrible alienación, de esa imposición del mundo occidental. Es evidente que esa colonización ha sido la exterminación de la vida, de la cultura, de la ciencia, de los conocimientos y de una rica vida humanamente. La abundancia y la ambición por el poder sobre el petróleo no ha sido nada bueno para nosotros, los humanos, si nosotros lo tomamos desde el punto de vista humano. Aparentemente para un grupo que yo no sé por qué tienen muy atrasada la mente, y no poder entender la destrucción que está haciendo el capitalismo. Porque el capitalismo lo que quiere es más, es más, es más. Dentro del capitalismo está el neoliberalismo, dentro del capitalismo está el libre comercio, y el libre comercio no es más que la destrucción de los pueblos con su propia productividad, tejido, agrícola, conocimiento, el derecho libre de vivir, lo mata el capitalismo por medio del libre comercio. Y como estamos hablando de psicología maya, no es más que la espiritualidad de todos los mundos latinos, de todos los pueblos y la sabiduría latina. Es más la conexión con el Creador. Con nosotros no hay muchos enfermos mentales como aquí. No hay, claro que hay. Porque se está matando la cultura, se está matando esas prácticas. Mucha gente no encuentra la conexión de su alma con su ser. En la salud mental en Guatemala, cuando se da cuenta que ya resulta una persona muy enferma, inmediatamente la psicología maya, la ceremonia, los baños, los tejidos, las artes, se acompaña. Vamos al baño, vamos a la montaña, vamos a caminar. Ven, empieza a hilar el tejido, empieza a tejer. Y luego nos vamos a caminar. Las ceremonias son en lugares altos. Solo la unidad, pero el verdadero concepto de unidad más fuerte que los símbolos de los capitalistas, más fuerte que los símbolos de los petroleros, porque ellos sí están unidos. Nosotros no. Estamos muy débiles en la unidad. Tenemos que unirnos más, tenemos que trabajar más.
2016 marks the hottest summer on record. In Houston, a heat advisory spans for days and days. And as my sister finds her way out of another altered mental state, I feel oil on my mind, an omen for what may come to us. I wonder what lies beyond the hope of recovery, beyond the hope of resilience. How can our causes merge? How can we let life live when some of us were never intended to survive? Do not apologize for the sadness we share, but come, mourn that which has been lost. Gather with me an archive of feeling, a shrine to those being sacrificed in the name of civilization, of progress. Taste the bones of our dead. Let us remake ourselves. Let us live dangerously in the face of catastrophe. Let our stories nestle together and create a frenzy of their own.